Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the sports podcast of the Kansas City Star and KCUR. It's Friday, April 24th. I'm Blair Kerkhoff, and we're talking Chiefs in the NFL Draft. The first round is in the books, and the Chiefs have made their selections. They went with LSU cornerback Mansoor Delane and Clemson defensive tackle Peter Woods with the 6th and 29th picks. Here to discuss these selections is Chiefs beat writer Pete Sweeney, who's covering the draft in Pittsburgh. Hello, Pete.
Hey, Blair, how are we?
I'm good. Busy night here in Kansas City, busy night in Pittsburgh, where the Chiefs, like I said, took two defensive players with their 2 picks. Maybe that wasn't a big shock, but trading up from number 9 to get to number 6 and select Mansoor Delane. What were your thoughts about that? Were you surprised?
I was surprised in a way, and I think in another way, I wasn't surprised. I think the night as a whole, and I'll come back to the first pick in a second, but the writing was on the wall here. When you really look at the cornerback position right now, with Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson, members of the Rams, the Chiefs needed more cornerbacks in the mix. When you look at the projected starters coming into the night, Christian Fulton and Noel Williams. Noel Williams had some flashes last year, a second-year player. Christian Fulton, injury-ridden at the beginning of the season, and then when he was healthy, he was scratched for some of the games in the middle of the year. So you felt like the cornerback position might have been their greatest need, and we had mentioned it, right? We like to victory lap, don't we, Blair? On our first mock, we had Delane going to the Chiefs because I just felt like this is their greatest need. And then when you go to the defensive tackle later in the first round, Brett Veach the other day said, I'd like to add 1 or 2. You're going to add 2 defensive tackles somewhere in the NFL draft. One of them might be coming on day 1. So maybe we were reading too much into it. I did see a lot of fans not so unhappy necessarily with the pick of Delane, but the amount that they went to go and get him. But if you just, and I did these needs articles in the offseason early on. I mean, after free agency, cornerback was clearly the biggest need, and they went and took a big swing, and it's a lot of draft capital, so the players could have to pay off, but they went and got who they believe to be the best cornerback in the entire NFL draft. That's why you make that type of trade in the top 6, and now he's a member of the Kansas City Chiefs.
That capital was the 3rd round pick, number 74 overall, and number 148 overall, which is in the 5th round. The Chiefs gave up those and their number 9 pick to get to number 6, trading with the Cleveland Browns. And Brett Veach told us afterwards that the New Orleans Saints, which were picking at 8, they thought were looking hard at Mansoor Delane, and that was the team they needed to get in front of to ensure that that they got what I think a consensus of opinion is the best cornerback in this draft. They got the number 1 cornerback. In fact, only 6 cornerbacks have been taken in the first 6 picks of the last 10 drafts. And another cornerback tonight wasn't picked until number 27 overall. So Mansoor Delane kind of was on an island when it came to a rating of this position. He was the best cornerback, and
And
the
Blair,
Chiefs made sure they went up and got him.
you kind of walked it. He was on an island, and that is what the Chiefs expect that they're going to be getting is a shutdown corner that will be an island that you don't want to throw to. And a big change for Delane was when he decided to go from Virginia Tech, not enter the NFL draft. Last year, he was projected to be like a mid-round pick, goes to LSU. It's basically the minor leagues, the SEC for the NFL, and just excels. If you really look at the numbers, had a great week 1 game against Clemson, and then all of a sudden quarterbacks aren't throwing his way. I think he ended up with less than 10% of targets thrown his way, throughout the season in all of his snaps. It was nearly 400 snaps. And so much like Trent McDuffie, this similarly sized kid from college was doing the same things at an elite level in the SEC. And so without signing a big name free agent, the Chiefs simply couldn't afford it. They're hoping they're getting the next Trent McDuffie. And I had an opportunity to talk to Delane one-on-one. And of course, you hear this from a lot of players. I've been doing this a long time now. He doesn't want to be compared to anybody, but this is as one for one as it gets. we were happy for Trent, played well here, won 2 championships, moving on, making all this money. Now we're going to draft who's going to be his one-for-one day one replacement. And remember, like, Spagnuolo doesn't necessarily always like playing young guys, but when you're the 6th pick of the NFL draft, you're going to be playing week 1.
A former wrestler, the Chiefs seem to like that. And Delane allowed 2 receptions of 20 yards this past season and only 13 catches allowed on 35 targets. What does that say? That they just did not throw his way this year at LSU.
Sounds a lot like Trent McDuffie in the
Yep.
NFL, and so that's why they go and get him, yeah.
Okay, Peter Woods, Chiefs went defensive line. It was one of the positions of need. I don't know if you or I in our mock drafts had defensive line among their first 3 picks in any of our mocks, maybe one or two. But they didn't need a trade to do this. At 29, Peter Woods was there. He told us tonight that when the draft got around to the Chiefs at that position, he felt very confident that that was going to be the case, that he would land in Kansas City. Not a massive guy, under 300 pounds, 298 is where he's listed, but very quick. And Chiefs love his athleticism. He's going to slide right into a defensive tackle rotation with, Chris Jones and Omar Norman Lott and Ashton Gelati. I think he's a guy that's going to see a lot of playing time early.
Along the defensive line, the Chiefs operate, to me, I'm an ACC Syracuse fan, like an ACC basketball team where you're 8 or 9 deep. They want to have a lot of those beefy defensive tackles that are going to stay fresh. Chris Jones is not getting any younger, so you're going to want to limit his snaps in some capacity. So he's at ideally max energy for what would be the postseason. So you have to load up at that position. And I think if there's one thing that sticks out among many things, I suppose, about the failures of last year, it was being able to get pressure on the opposing offense without having to blitz. And I think this was a clear sign that they want to load up that defensive line. And I think it's also a sign not just about Peter Woods, because now you are feeling better about the tackles than you felt in a long time, but they must feel good about the edge rushers that they can get with tomorrow's pick. I have to imagine they're going to stick with defense and get an edge rusher on day 2. I wonder if they trade back into, now that they've gotten rid of their 3rd round pick, they trade back in, and that's where they address the wide receiver, because that is lingering as well. But this felt like a very intentional thing for the Chiefs, where maybe we all felt like wide receiver was more important than the team felt. And, that happens sometimes. I'll be very intrigued to see what this means for day 2. I did feel like the Chiefs needed to come in this draft and use a lot of their 9 picks. They ended up obviously giving 2 away. I wonder if there's a trade back where maybe they end up getting more picks later on to continue to add at these positions of need.
Yeah, as Brett Veach told us tonight that they go into tomorrow with a pick pretty soon. I mean, they're at number 40 overall, so they'll be on the clock pretty early in round 2 tomorrow. As you said, the 3rd round pick was used to move up and select Mansoor Delane. I'm with you. I wouldn't be surprised to see some wheeling and dealing and try to get a or pick or 2 back for the Chiefs. I am also struck by the fact that the last time the Chiefs had 2 first-round picks, they also took a cornerback and a defensive lineman. That was in 2022 with McDuffie and George Karlaftis. Did the same thing tonight. Pretty interesting, I think. But yeah, defense was the emphasis. That's what the Chiefs established tonight, and they went up and got it done. So, okay, Pete, great stuff. Really appreciate it. Travel safely, and we'll see you back in Kansas City soon.
That's right. The weekend doesn't end. Looking forward to it, Blair.
Thanks to our SportsBeat KC staff of Gabriella, Lacey, Irvin, Zhang, and Suzanne Hogan, and to our editors Jeff Rosen and Scott Chasen. Let us know if you enjoyed the show or have a suggestion by leaving a comment or review, or both. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in Kansas City.